If you are here for just a tutorial, you're at the wrong video. Check the description, I have a much faster tutorial. This video is for people who want to hear a lot more yapping. This is a Thinkpad T480, widely considered one of the last great ThinkPads. It's pretty cool. It's released back in around 2017 for the asking price of several $1,000s, aimed towards businessmen who needed business laptops for doing business stuff. Nowadays, they are among some of the many terrific ThinkPad laptops available for fantastic prices on the second-hand market. I got mine used for about 350 Canadian dollars. For that price, this is a pretty good laptop. If you wanted to get one for yourself, do be careful, because they come with several different CPUs, and this sticker here doesn't actually tell you everything you need to know. Most of them that you'll find for a good price use dual-core CPUs. And the issue with dual-core CPUs is that they're extremely slow. For a laptop, if you want a laptop for light usage, a quad-core ThinkPad is gonna be perfect. A dual-core is only good if you know exactly what you're doing and you're not planning on using this as a daily driver, or maybe you're planning on just using it as the most bare-bones basic laptop. But if you want, like a genuinely good laptop kind of experience, you're going to want at least a quad-core ThinkPad. Another thing about my ThinkPad is that you'll often find they have something stuck on the front, and you can see here it wasn't really perfectly aligned. So this bit here kind of covers a bit of the T. This likely was pretty scuffed up when they sold it. Probably pretty scuffed up. I don't care too much. Even though you can tell the color difference. You can also kind of see the trackpad also had something re-put on. Again, I don't care too much. This ThinkPad also comes with a fingerprint reader, a separated power button, so it's not part of the keyboard, but the keyboard you can actually see is a different piece of plastic to the rest of the laptop. So with many modern laptops, to replace the keyboard, you would need to flip it over, unscrew the back, take everything out, and then you're left with the keyboard. You have to disconnect it from the screen, put the keyboard back on the screen, and then put everything back in. Unnecessarily difficult, given that it's essentially the most common point of failure for a laptop, aside from a battery. And the ThinkPad solves that by making it a different piece of plastic, so you can just pull it out, put a new one back in. The other most common point of failure for a laptop is the battery. And again, the T480 has you covered. This is the battery. One of two batteries. I believe this one is original. This one is at least the one that this came with. And you can just pop it out, buy a new one, slide it right in. It does have a second battery inside, which is a little harder to replace, but it's still doable. But this is far beyond what most other laptop manufacturers will do. It is true that many laptops allow you to just plug in a power bank. And maybe if you got like a hard drive tray in your laptop that you're not using, you can fit the power bank in there, but really, this is a significantly better result. Today, I'm going to be replacing both of these batteries because whoever used this originally used the batteries quite a lot. This one in particular just can't hold a charge. When I am in my operating system and I'm charged, this says it's on full charge, but it also gives me a low battery health warning. Whenever I've depleted the interior battery, it'll say this one will probably last you like 30 minutes. And it doesn't last 30 minutes, it lasts more like 30 seconds, and then it's at zero and the laptop shuts down. So this battery is more or less useless. The interior battery is actually pretty good. The interior battery is enough to carry this old thing into a usable laptop experience. However, the interior battery does last only 3 or so hours, and I want to not have to be tethered that closely to an outlet. So that's what I'm going to be replacing. And one last thing, because I know there will be a lot of comments talking about this, let me just boot up the laptop. Because there will be a lot of comments. If I don't show this, there will be a lot of comments telling me to do something like this. And most of the commenters already know what I'm referring to, and I've probably stopped commenting about that now. But for those of you who don't know, one of the most popular things to do with an older laptop, especially to increase its battery life, is to install Linux. Linux, the majority of distros are significantly more lightweight than Windows. At least by default, you can choose to make them heavier. You can also see this comes with a touchscreen too. And it runs perfectly fine. Even so, with Linux, with that battery life improvement, it did give me an extra hour, and 3 hours is usable for most of my use cases. Sometimes it isn't, so I want to change it. Now begins the tutorial, per se, because I will be stopping several times to continue to talk about things I love about this laptop, which you will see after I've opened it up. So when you're getting ready for a battery replacement, or really any kind of repair on a laptop, there are a few things you have to do. The very first thing is you want to disconnect all batteries. This battery here is hot swappable, so there's nothing we really need to do, just remove it. Here, I stopped the tutorial already to gush about how much I love this laptop. This is a SIM card slot. You know those things you put in your phone for mobile data? There's one that lets you put that in here. I don't know what the software support for this on Linux is like. I haven't tried it yet, but I think that's really cool. I'm willing to bet it's a lot more useful for, people in business, people who go fly everywhere, people who spend a lot of time on the road where they have a cell signal and they don't want to have to keep hotspotting their laptop. This would be super useful for them. Now that we have the battery removed, the external battery, the hot swappable one, I want to say one more thing about the laptop's build before I take it apart, and that's how it's really solid. I can put some proper pressure on this, and it hardly bends. The keyboard too, there is definitely flex. You'll never reach it when you're typing, even when you're tapping hard. And even so, when you do properly press, there isn't all that much. Now, however, that the external battery is out, it will turn on without that external battery. You can actually buy them without the external battery. They'll probably get a discount, and they'll still work. And what you want to do is, as it's turning on, when you see that, when you see to interrupt normal startup, press enter. You press enter, you'll see this screen. You want to press F1 to enter the BIOS setup utility. From here, we're going to internally disconnect the internal battery. So you want to go into config, then into power, arrow keys to move, and enter to select. You want to go into disable built-in battery, and then press enter. And then press yes. It'll power down and disconnect that internal battery, because now we can safely work on this without having to worry quite as much about damaging the components, the battery, or electrocuting yourself. Now it's time for the replacement batteries. I'm going to start with the easiest one. This is my replacement external battery. Came with some foam to protect it, that's nice. A manual. The manual contains just general battery health tips. Came in an anti-static bag. Here we go. This battery is a 72 watt-hour battery versus my old 24 watt-hour battery? So obviously, you can get a replacement battery. I'd recommend getting an original. You can see the Lenovo logo is not there, where it is on this one. I'd recommend getting an original if possible, because the original battery is generally going to be more reputable. However, you can get a replacement battery that has a huge capacity increase against your original, and I could simply plug this in. You can see it does have a hump, because this is a 72 watt-hour battery versus the flat 24 watt-hour one. However, you could just plug this in, and then you got extra battery life. Not going to do that just yet, because we just went through the work of disabling my internal battery. So I'm going to put the external battery back in its anti-static bag for now. Highly unlikely to do anything, but it is just for peace of mind. Just like that, and I'll even put it back in its original box. Because here we have the more interesting battery. This is the internal battery replacement. It came with 2 screwdrivers, a manual that is exactly the same, so you don't get instructions, some more foam, and the actual battery itself, again, in an anti-static bag. Let's open this up and have a look inside. Yep, looks like a battery to me. This one is also not an original, by the way. But I'm going to put this back inside of its anti-static bag for now, and use the 2 screwdrivers it came with to disassemble the rest of the laptop. Got a Phillips head, and I think this is a Torx. I don't know where's my, there we are. I think this is a Torx. It's also very small. You want to use the Phillips head, though, to take out the screws. You have one screw here and one screw here. Thanks, camera, for focusing. If you like. Oh my god. Okay, you know what? You'll have to go without audio for a bit. Alright, now that I've got all the screws loosened, after you've taken off your battery, you might have noticed this strip here, which is a separate piece of plastic to this, and has this little thing here. Now, I wouldn't recommend pulling on it until you've loosened your screws, because it is actually the same piece of plastic as the rest of the chassis here. Once you've loosened your screws, you can actually take a fingernail, and that'll kind of pop up here, and you can work your way around the laptop, kind of pulling up. There are a bunch of plastic clips here that you gotta unclip. One pretty easy mistake to make when it's your first time is that sometimes they'll start opening the laptop while you're trying to pry it off. Make sure when you're actually separating them that you find the separation between the chassis and the keyboard versus the keyboard and the screen. So this little gap here you don't want to pull at. This one here though you do. And you do want to be gentle as well, because you don't want to put too much stress on any piece of the chassis, because it can break. As much as I love to praise the resilience and the strength of this laptop, it can break. It's also important to note there was some noise in the environment as I was doing this. I couldn't talk about it as it happened, but as I was unscrewing the screw, a lot of you may have noticed that I was actually sliding my laptop around. That's not the recommended way to do things, because you'll scuff it up. However, I don't particularly care about scuffs on my laptop, and now I can see it all comes up and reveals the rest of the device. Very interesting little metallic covering here. I'm not sure what that's for. Maybe thermal distribution? It's the only thing I can think of, because it's not thick enough to add any extra structural support. However, you can also see the clips for holding your battery in place. Here we have a few things that I like about this laptop. First off, there's a place to slot in some extra RAM to upgrade. And furthermore, there's another slot. 2 RAM slots. The T480S, which is like the refresh of the T480, only has 1 RAM socket. The other one, instead of being a socket, is actually soldered on. When you want to replace your RAM, I'm going to talk about that later actually. First things first, you see this internal battery. Before I touch anything else, you want to find the internal battery, and you want to find the cable that comes off of the internal battery and where it connects to the motherboard, and you want to disconnect that cable. What we can also do to check to make sure that the battery is good to replace, not foolproof, but it will save you from making some very seemingly stupid mistakes, is you just put the new battery over the old one to see if it's the same shape, which this one is. For the T480, or at least my model T480, you can just pull on that cable and it'll come off. Now before I go any further, I want to make sure that the wires on the battery I bought and the battery I have are the same. Because if they're not, then I can quickly go and not waste any more of my time. Putting them side by side, I can see they appear identical, color-coded, identical. This battery indeed should work. Now I can gush more about this laptop. So when you want to replace the RAM, or you want to add more RAM, if I wanted to, say, replace this stick of RAM, you see these 2 arms here? There's a piece of metal here, and a piece of metal here. You want to put your fingers on them, and pull them both away. That RAM will stick up. You can then pull it out. You can see these little golden strips there. Don't touch them. And when you want to put any RAM in, maybe you've already taken it out, you're replacing it, or there was no RAM there to begin with, and you're just putting more in. You want to take your RAM, don't hold it by these golden bits here, lift this plastic up, and you'll see there's actually a little notch or a key in the RAM slot. You want to line it up with your RAM stick. You want to put it in its slot, and then simply push it down. Both of these arms should snap, and it should stay in place, in which case, you're good to go. If this were a Mac, there would be a video twice as long as this to talk about just the RAM replacement. Most of this video has been me gushing about how much I love this laptop, talking about its different features, and then just 2 minutes at max talking about the RAM replacement. If you want to replace RAM on a Mac, it's a huge endeavor, and you're voiding your warranty. And Apple probably hates you. And worst part of all that is you're even helping the environment, which is awful, truly horrendous, just a terrible thing to do. Don't ever help the environment by extending the lifetime of your technology. Don't be like Lenovo and letting you add more RAM if ever the amount of RAM your laptop has isn't enough. That's just awful. Moving on, here we have our Wi-Fi slot, but here we have another interesting thing. Now the Wi-Fi card can also work as this, but I'd like to keep my Wi-Fi, thank you very much, at least for now. And Bluetooth, I believe this does Bluetooth as well. However, this actually fits a very small hard drive. It's supposed to be for a WAN card, not sure what that is, but it's an M.2 slot. It fits an SSD. It'll have to be a very small SSD. I believe it's a 2242 or 2230 SSD. And you'll only get PCIe 3x2 speeds, I believe, which is not great. But upgradable storage. There is also, right here, you've got a hard drive tray. If you've bought an older ThinkPad, you'll probably actually get a hard drive in here. If you do, I'd recommend making the upgrade that is made to any newer resellings of these. Because if you buy one that's been worked on, most of the time, so instead of having a spinning disk hard drive, which is still the cheapest way to get huge amounts of storage, but it's very slow, and nowadays you don't want it to be the drive you boot off of. So you'll have the cable that comes into here that would normally connect to your hard drive, that instead connects to this board, that gives you an SSD. And normally you'll get a full-size SSD because, as far as SSDs go, they're the cheapest storage space per dollar you can get. You'll also often have a thermal exchange pad here, which you don't want to touch like I just did. It's not the end of the world. Realistically, probably doesn't make a huge effect. However, out of principle, don't touch it. You also see some weird traces here. This is actually where, if you've got a higher end ThinkPad, you'll actually have a dedicated graphics card here. However, with your CPU here, you get an integrated GPU, which is good enough for pretty much everything else. I do note though, you won't be doing really any gaming on this. Even if you have the dedicated GPU, it's really not that powerful, at least compared to modern ones. However, you're buying the old ThinkPad for a reliable laptop that is at least somewhat upgradable and repairable. You're not buying it for performance. So let's just put that hard drive adapter right back where it came from. And now I can have my two last little things I want to talk about. Firstly, right here is that SIM card slot. Pretty cool. Lastly, here is your fan. If you actually use your laptop on your lap, or you use your laptop on your bed, or on a sheet, or in a dusty environment, or if you have cats in your house, you'll probably see, maybe not hair in the actual fan, but there is a grill right here. And when you take the fan off, that grill is often covered in hair. That can severely damage your performance, it can damage your hardware's lifespan, so generally it's recommended that every once in a while you take your laptop apart to take off the fan and clean it out. Now if it's really bad, then you'll get tons of hair and dust caught up in the fan itself. Here, this fan looks pretty much okay. Finally, we can see there's one screw here, and there's one screw here. These two screws here appear to be more for the speaker than the battery. So we'll go ahead and remove this screw here and hang on to it, because new batteries generally don't come with screws. And then I'll do this screw here. Hang on to these both. They are the same size. And also, for the T480 at least, there is a kind of hook here So when you're taking out the battery, the screws will be here. You want to rotate the battery like that, and then lift it out like that. And then finally, to insert the battery, you just do the opposite thing. Kind of lift it in like this, put it down like that. I would recommend looking at any manuals your batteries come with, because often with batteries, for their first use, you want to discharge them very nearly to 0, and then fully charge them all the way to 100, and then you can commence regular use. Also, when you're plugging the new battery in, look at your old battery and look at how it goes. You can see here the positive terminal connects to those red wires. The red wires go to the bottom. You can tell using these screw holes that this battery did indeed go in like this. So we can see that positive terminal needs to connect to the red wires, which needs to be on the bottom. So I can't plug this in like that. I have to flip it over and plug it in like this. Thanks, camera, for focusing and showing what I'm talking about. I can't plug this battery in like that because the positive terminal does indeed line up with the red wiring, but these red wires are on the top here. You want to flip it over like this. So now the red batteries are on the bottom. And it should be safe to plug in. Now that that's all plugged in, I can put the old case back on. However, take these old batteries and hang on to them. Because if your new batteries have an issue, if they're defective, if you've plugged them in wrong and you've damaged them, if they light fire, if they explode, if they become spicy pills way too soon, you want to have your old batteries as backups to still be able to use the device, especially if it's your primary device. If you only have the laptop, it's hard to get new batteries for it if the laptop won't turn on. And while if those batteries do blow up, or if they do turn into spicy pillows and then blow up, or if they start a fire, they could very well damage your laptop beyond repair. It's always worth keeping those old batteries intact for a while until you're comfortable that these new ones don't blow up, because if they do have an issue and you can't turn your laptop on with your new batteries, there's still a chance you can put the old batteries back in and have it still work. If all else fails, however, most laptops can be powered from their charging port alone. So if you do end up with a laptop who doesn't have any functional batteries, and you need to use the laptop to get a new battery, you can often plug it in and that'll be enough power to have it turn on. One thing to note as well is that throughout this video, and I'm going to include a warning at the start of the video, but throughout this video you'll see me sliding the laptop around a lot. I wouldn't do this with another person's device. I wouldn't do that if I were you, because that will scuff up your laptop. I do it because I don't care if my laptop gets scuffed. You can see already it's got that scuff there, it's got some scuff here, some scuff there. I don't know how visible it is on camera. It's fairly scuffed. Now that that new internal battery is in, I can then do the easy repair. Take the new external battery, plug that in. And this external battery seems to have a bit of an issue, because generally the sides of these first push the clips out of the way, then there are dents in the plastic here to allow these clips to snap back in place and hold the battery in place. Snap back in place and hold the battery in place. But you can see as I plug this new battery back in, these don't really snap back. This one kind of snaps back, but this one I actually have to kind of push to get back. But it's held in solidly, so I have confidence in it. You can definitely see that adds a bit of weight, that adds a bit of chonkiness to it, and holds your laptop up at an angle. You can put something underneath it at the front to even it out. However, do keep in mind that with most laptops, lifting the back up will actually help your thermal performance, because there will be more air here to circulate and bring the heat away, which especially helps with a battery, because batteries don't do well when they're very hot. Finally, however, do not turn it back on for the first time when it's on your lap, Because if one of those batteries does indeed have an issue and blows up, you don't want that on your lap. You don't want that on your skin. I have never had a battery blow up, so I don't know if it's safe to maybe have your hand here so you can feel it heating up. To be safe, I have a very fast way to leave the room. I should be able to boot into my operating system, in which case I will check the batteries, I'll check their health, and then I'll use it until the batteries are low on health. I feel the bottom of the device, the batteries feel cool. There we go. Now I'm on KDE Plasma. I'm not sure how you do this on Windows. I'm not sure how you do this on GNOME or any other desktop environments. But with KDE Plasma, you can just go into this power and battery, and it'll tell you how many batteries you have, what they're at, and their battery health. What's great to see is both of these are at 100% battery health. Say I have multiple hours left of battery life. What I'm going to do is use this laptop until the battery does indeed reach 5%. One thing I could recommend is only putting each new one in one at a time instead of both at once, which I'm actually going to shut this down and do that, because that way I can take each battery, discharge it to 5%, charge it all the way up, and then put the new battery in, and I can have that new battery be the one I'm discharging first, discharge to 5%, charge it all the way up, and then both the batteries have had that cycle done for maximum battery health. I'll remove the easier one to remove, because KDE Plasma is smart. It will start by discharging the external battery, then will discharge the internal battery. So that way, if your external battery dies, you can replace it if you have replacements. And also makes it easier to do that first cycle for the battery life. I can remove the external battery easily, and now I will use this laptop until the internal battery dies.